Hello, everyone. Today we're going to talk about something heavy but something we must know and must never forget. We're delving into the horrific atrocities of Unit 731 and the devastation it left behind. What exactly was Unit 731? And what kinds of unspeakable, inhuman acts were committed there? Let's uncover, one by one, the shocking and heartbreaking truths. This story will remind us why we have to remember history and how precious peace truly is. First, what exactly was Unit 731? Unit 731 was a top-secret, biological warfare research and development organization under the Imperial Japanese Army. Its official name was the Kwantung Army Epidemic Prevention and Water Purification Department. From the name alone, it might sound like a unit handling sanitation or water systems. But in reality, it developed biological and chemical weapons, and, in doing so, conducted deadly, inhuman experiments on innocent people. It was formally established in 1936, with its headquarters in Harbin, Heilongjiang Province, in northeastern China. It was founded by imperial decree of Emperor Hirohito, and even the emperor's youngest brother, Prince Mikasa Takahito, served as an officer in the unit. That gives a sense of the powerful backing behind the unit, and how its brutality reached deep into the core of the Japanese Empire. This was not a matter of a few fanatic soldiers going rogue. It was a state-level system of organized crime against humanity. Unit 731 was not just a single headquarters. Its scale and brutality exceeded anything we might imagine. Across Manchuria, mainland China, Japanese-occupied Korea, and occupied parts of Southeast Asia, dozens of subunits and epidemic prevention and water supply detachments operated in secret. All of these units moved under the umbrella of what was commonly called the Ishii Unit, commanded by Lieutenant General Shiro Ishii, carrying out atrocities designed to erase human dignity. Throughout the occupied territories, they abducted countless people and dragged them away by force to become test subjects. Their very existence fills one of the darkest and most shameful pages in human history. So what specific atrocities were committed in Unit 731? The reality is almost beyond the limits of the imagination. A series of experiments performed on living humans with no sense of guilt, no hesitation, and no remorse. From here, I'll go through these shocking and heartbreaking acts in detail, records of suffering that we must never forget. The first atrocity was live dissection and medical practice. Without anesthesia, they cut into living human bodies to observe physiological reactions. Human suffering was of no concern, only data mattered. They even slit open the bellies of pregnant women to observe their fetuses. These are the kinds of experiments no human being should ever contemplate. Carried out without flinching, the idea that slicing into a living person and peering at their organs could be justified as medical practice is horrifying in itself. It twisted the essence of medicine and tore human dignity out by the roots. Victims died in agony as their bodies were opened. Their final moments were treated as nothing more than a step in an experimental protocol. This turned medicine meant for humanity into a tool of human destruction. A tragic warning of how far science can fall when stripped of ethics. The second atrocity was biochemical experimentation. Unit 731 directly infected human beings with pathogens that have devastated humanity: plague, cholera, anthrax, dysentery, typhoid, and more. They forcibly injected contaminated substances, fed people tainted food, and even released infected fleas to spread disease. They recorded the progression of illnesses and claimed to be searching for vaccines and treatments, but in truth, they only drove countless innocent people to excruciating deaths, using human beings as test animals to build biological weapons. is one of the most savage and immoral crimes in all of history. Victims suffered high fevers, vomiting, diarrhea, hemorrhaging agonies beyond what we can imagine while Unit 731 personnel watched and wrote things down, showing no human compassion or guilt whatsoever. The third atrocity was frostbite experimentation. In the bitter cold of Manchuria, where temperatures swing between 20 and 30 C, Unit 731 forced people outdoors to induce frostbite. They then tried thawing frostbitten limbs in hot water, cold water, or by wrapping them in dry cloth, all while observing changes and the course of recovery. The stated goal was to learn what happens to the human body under extreme cold, and how to treat frostbite, but all it produced was extreme pain and death. Victims' flesh rotted, their limbs had to be amputated, and their screams were ignored. In some cases, the already frostbitten limb was smashed with a hammer. The purpose here was, in effect, to find the most efficient ways to destroy living bodies and inflict pain and absolute betrayal of humanity. The fourth atrocity was weapons testing. To maximize the destructive power and efficiency of the weapons they developed, they tested them directly on living people. Grenades, landmines, flamethrowers, even biological and chemical agents under development were used to see how lethal they were against human bodies. This reveals just how completely they saw people as tools, or expendable material. To test weapons on living human beings is a crime against humanity, even in wartime, and exposes, without ambiguity, Unit 731's utter lack of humanity. Subjects were blown apart by explosions, burned alive by fire, or suffocated by poisonous gas. Their deaths were recorded as mere data, with no respect shown to them as human beings. The fifth atrocity was the preparation for biological warfare. They did far more than develop pathogens. They systematically prepared to use them in actual war. They bred disease vectors, rats and fleas, on a massive scale to spread plague and other deadly diseases. They deliberately contaminated food and clothing to foster outbreaks, and repeatedly rehearsed how to disseminate pathogens. This went far beyond experimentation into the realm of large-scale killing as an explicit war crime. Had their plans succeeded fully, countless innocent people across Asia would have died of disease. They worked on bombs packed with pathogens, and practiced dispersal over population centers by aircraft. Their goal was to unleash epidemics to cripple enemy forces and paralyze society, a barbaric method of war designed to spread suffering and death. Victims of these horrific experiments were referred to by Unit 731 as Maruta, Japanese for logs. The term itself shows how test subjects were not seen as human beings, but as mere materials, logs to be used and discarded. Their names were erased and replaced by a dehumanizing label, a stark sign of how deeply the unit was steeped in an anti-human mindset. There were many other experiments, too, whose cruelty defies comprehension. There was the decompression chamber experiment, in which subjects were placed in pressure tanks, and the pressure was changed rapidly to observe how the body responds. Bodies swelling like balloons and rupturing while the process was recorded without emotion. There were blood exchange and organ removal transplant experiments, in which people were injected with others' blood, or organs were extracted and transplanted. Every one of these experiments trampled human dignity, committing heinous crimes under the guise of scientific inquiry. If a physical hell existed, it would likely look something like this. Every kind of pain that can be inflicted on the human body and mind was systematically studied and carried out there. Who were the victims? They were not confined to one ethnicity or nationality. Chinese, Koreans, Russians, Mongolians, people of many backgrounds suffered, despite having done no wrong. Among Korean victims were independents, activists fighting for their country's liberation, political prisoners who resisted colonial rule, and ordinary civilians accused of nothing at all. They were victims of the Japanese Empire's brutal war of aggression. The number of people killed in Unit 731's live experiments is hard to determine precisely, but estimates put it at least 3,000. Some studies suggest more than 10,000. Perhaps the most tragic fact is that not a single subject survived. Once an experiment ended, or if a subject was deemed no longer useful, they were killed. Their deaths concealed, and their families never notified. Bodies were burned or dumped to destroy evidence. What happened to Unit 731 after World War II? Tragically, those who committed some of the most monstrous crimes in human history were not brought to justice as they should have been. The United States, as a victorious power, chose to obtain Unit 731's vast trove of human experimentation, records and bio-warfare data in exchange for not prosecuting its personnel. That is a shocking truth. Those who committed the most brutal, anti-human crimes escaped judgment by trading their inhuman knowledge for immunity, a stain on the ideal of international justice. As a result, Unit 731's atrocities seemed to vanish into history without proper reckoning. They were not put on trial, and some key figures even took comfortable positions at American research institutions. This remains a grievous blow to the cause of justice worldwide. How has the Japanese government responded? While it acknowledges that Unit 731 existed, it has yet to clearly admit or apologize for the brutal live experiments and war crimes committed there. Even worse, public awareness within Japan has faded, and some have moved to glorify the wartime era and distort history. Such denial and evasion risk repeating past wrongs.